Right, I'm going to show you how to do this continuous granny square blanket. So I'm using a Caron baby cake. Use whichever size hook you want. It says a 5, I'm using a 6.5 only because I do things very tight. So you start off with your slip knot, so around your finger and around your finger again. Take the back one and bring it forwards. Take the new back one and bring it right over your finger. Took me ages to learn one of those. And it's so simple. And how you hold your yarn and your hook is a very personal thing. There's no right or wrong way. So chain 4. And then yarn over and go back into that very first stitch. Then yarn over and pull it through. Yarn over, pull it through 2. Yarn over and pull it through 2. So it's a US double or a UK treble, and I always say treble. So that first chain that you did and you went back, it makes your first lot of stitches. And there's your second one. So you do in clusters of 3. So yarn over, go straight back into that same circle. So it's always in a cluster of 3. So then you chain 2, which makes your corner. So you always chain 2 for a corner. Yarn over, go back into that same circle, and you'll do another cluster of 3. This is just how you start your normal squares anyway. But the next round you'll see how we change things. That's 2, one more. So there's another cluster of 3. So we'll chain 2 again. This is our second corner. Then another cluster of 3. So now we've got 2 corners there. So we're going to chain 2 for our third corner. Most of you, in another cluster of 3, most of you will be able to skip this basic part and move along in the video to see what we do. And so I've done a cluster of 3, a chain 2 for a corner, cluster of 3, a chain 2 for a corner, a cluster of 3, a chain 2 for a corner, and my last cluster of 3, I chain 2 for this fourth corner, and then I slip stitch into the top of this first chain that we did right back at the beginning. So I just slip stitch up into here, to join these 2 together. And you pull it straight through. So there is the start, little piece there. There is your corner, and it's what we do next. So it should be just looking just like that. Now this is the only time that we do something different. Let me just get that set up. So after you've done that, you turn your work. It's the only time you turn. Then you chain 3, and this is the only time you chain 3 to get up to the next level. And you can see we're actually now facing a corner. So we're going to finish that first cluster. So do your treble or your double crochet. Make your cluster of 3. Oops. So I end up with a bit of a tangle. I'll just pull some up. So you've made your first cluster of 3 and we're doing a corner. So chain 2. Another cluster of 3 in that same corner. So there's your corner. You've got your cluster of 3, your chain 2 for the corner and your cluster of 3. So chain 1, and then we're over on the next corner because here's our next space. So we're going to do a cluster of 3, chain 2 and a cluster of 3. And this is just how you continue along for the whole round. It's very simple. So then I chain 2 and I do another cluster in that same corner. It's so sunny outside and I've closed the curtain, so I hope you can see. I won't be able to tell if you can see on this video till I look when I've finished. So there we've done one corner, we've done one chain here in the middle, and we've done another corner. So we'll chain 1, and then we're going to do another cluster of 3, chain 2 and a cluster of 3 in that corner. Chain 2. I'm going to go out into the garden after this, get my daily dose of vitamin D. Hopefully it's not too windy today. It's lovely outside when it's not windy. So there you go, I've made another corner. Chain 1, and I'll come over, and this is my last corner. This is how you always do your corners. Oops, pull a bit more out. And it's all staticky, it sticks to me. Oops, hit the camera. Chain 2 and finish off that corner with another cluster. So this is what you've got now, which is you've got your corners defined and you've started building up your sides. So you're just up to here. So this is what you have now, and this is the only time that we need to worry about doing this. So then you chain one, and then what we do is we go into this space right here. We don't go into the end, into the chain, but we go right into this space. And we're going to make a cluster. Cluster 3, and then chain 1, and then we're back at a corner. So now we're just going to do a corner, which is a cluster of 3. As long as you remember to do your corners, you'll be fine. Chain 2, and another cluster of 3. I just stop and check every so often to make sure I'm not stopping at 2 or haven't done 4, because it becomes just a really good chain 1, and then we go into the center there with a cluster of 3. This is a really good, what I call a mindless project to do, talking with friends, watching a movie. You don't want to have to think about something. And once you've done this beginning bit, then I put it into a bag, and when I chain 1 after that cluster, you're back at a corner. So I'll do my cluster of 3, chain 2, cluster of 3. So once I have done this beginning bit to get it started, I can put it in a bag and take it with me anywhere. Then I don't have to worry about anything. Then chain 1 and a cluster in the middle part there. When I've done this, I might go out and work in the garden for a while, get my daily dose of vitamin D. Bit of a colour change there. I don't know if you can see it. Looks like it's just a bit of a blob. I don't worry about that if you have a bit of a blob of colour coming up. Some people like to cut theirs out. So I chain 1 and I'm back at a corner. So I just do my 2 clusters. So chain 2 in the middle. Yeah, I don't worry about if there's any faults in the colours of the yarns and there's a bit of splash of colour here and there. It doesn't worry me. I just keep going. Some people like to cut them out and rejoin the yarn, get rid of the fault. And so that's pretty much it. It just goes around and around and around. Chain 1 in the middle, cluster of 3, chain 1 up to the corner here, chain 2, chain 1, then you're back up to that space, and it's just looks a little bit bigger because I didn't pull it very tight, but it's just the middle bit. So if you don't like the look of I think I pulled it a bit tighter on the other blanket where it joined. Chain 1, and then the next space here is not a corner, so you just do your cluster of 3, and it just keeps growing just like the traditional blanket. Chain 1, and now we're back at a corner. Chain 2, and so that's just basically, you just keep going around and around and around. As you go around, you're just working and it just keeps going. I hope that makes sense. I can go around one more time if you like. I'll just pull up some more yarn. So I love using these yarns where they change the colour all themselves. So now I don't have to think about going up into a new level. Chain 1, and I'm in the middle here. I've got 2 spaces now, so I do a cluster of 3. Anyone experienced with granny squares will be able to stop watching now. And then chain 1, and then do another cluster because it's not the corner. Chain 1, and we are up to the corner. So I'll do my 2 clusters. Chain 2. And chain 1 and move over to do a cluster in this one. You can see with a thicker yarn it grows much quicker than that other blanket I did with a very thin yarn. Not looking forward to using the 4.5 hook. Chain 1 and move over. It's not a corner, so I do another cluster. Might get addicted to doing these in thicker yarn with bigger hooks. Chain 1, and now we are at a corner. So I'll do my 2 clusters. It's really great that some of you are joining up with my Facebook group, chatting to me and show me what you've been doing. I love to see what you're doing. Keeps me motivated too and gives me an incentive to try something different. 3, chain 2. Another blob of colour showing up, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. Chain 1. So we're just going around and around, but Right, I'm just trying to show you how there is no line for the joining, even though I haven't turned. I've only turned once just to do the pattern. So, and I wanted to show you where I join the colours. So when I came along the edge of this row, I did this first cluster and then I changed the yarn and then did 2 chain and then the next cluster. So that's how I did my corners. So you don't sort of notice. That's how I did it. I thought I tried a different way up here. I finished the colour there and did the whole corner in the white. But overall, you don't really notice. But when I came to finish, because it's continuous, I haven't weaved in my ends, to make a nice square corner, this is where you do your cluster of 3, your chain 2 and your cluster of 3 to keep going. I just did 2 trebles UK, they're double crochets for US. I just did 2 and you can see how it just squares off the corner nicely. If I'd done 3 it would stick out just a little bit more to go around the corner. But anyway, you try, but that's how I finished, because I suddenly thought, oh, it's continuous, how does it finish? But that's just how I did it, and yeah, I love it. Well, it's working up really fast with the thicker yarn, coming along nicely. Nearly finished the first ball or cake, and going to start the second one. So it's looking good. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Bye.